To the world, it's just, what has she been doing? Does she work? As opposed to, oh my gosh, I work so hard. And I appreciate what hard work looks like. I like working hard.
The beginning of that clip where she's like, oh my God. It's like, it's so inauthentic.
Is Meghan Markle truly misunderstood, or has she become one of the most debated public figures of the modern royal era? That question is once again dominating headlines after the release of her latest podcast episode, an appearance that quickly sparked intense reactions across social media and news outlets alike. In the episode, Meghan opened up emotionally, sharing personal reflections and speaking candidly about the pressures she has faced in recent years. The conversation was deeply personal and at moments visibly emotional. For some listeners, the vulnerability felt genuine and relatable. Supporters praised her for speaking openly about difficult experiences and for showing a side of herself that many public figures rarely reveal. But others saw the moment very differently. Critics argued that the emotional tone only reignited the same controversies that have followed Meghan for years. Part of the discussion centered on the dynamic between Meghan and the podcast host, Jamie Kern-Lima. Some viewers felt the conversation leaned heavily toward admiration rather than challenging questions. The tone between the two women was warm and supportive, but for certain observers, it felt unusually intense, almost as if the discussion had become more about praise than exploration. Online reactions appeared almost instantly. Clips from the episode spread quickly across social platforms, and within hours, debates, commentary threads, and memes began circulating. Some praised the conversation as heartfelt and inspiring. Others described it as uncomfortable, arguing that the interview lacked balance or critical perspective. But the podcast was only the beginning of a much larger conversation. Around the same time, Meghan appeared on Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential women, a recognition that immediately divided opinion. Supporters viewed the honor as a reflection of her global visibility and the causes she has championed. Critics, however, questioned whether her influence truly matched the recognition, with some arguing the selection was more symbolic than earned. The timing made the situation even more complicated. Just days after the podcast episode gained attention, Prince Harry's interview with the BBC aired, creating another wave of headlines. The interview included several moments that sparked debate among viewers, and suddenly the public conversation around the Sussexes intensified again. At the same time, long-standing rumors about Meghan's working style resurfaced in the media.
I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff. I would love reconciliation with my family. I've always, there's no point in continuing to fight anymore. As I said, life is precious.
If you are trying to reconcile with your family, if you are trying to make amends, you don't go on TV and blame them again. This is literally the last thing.
Former staff accounts and anonymous sources, claims that have circulated before, were once again discussed online. Some described her as highly demanding and extremely detail-focused, while others defended her as simply being professional and driven in high-pressure environments. These resurfacing stories added fuel to an already active debate about Meghan's public image versus her private personality. Business developments also became part of the conversation. The end of the Sussex podcast partnership with Spotify and mixed reactions to some of the couple's streaming projects led critics to question whether their media strategy was delivering the results originally expected. Taken together, these developments have created a complex public narrative, one that swings between admiration and skepticism. For some audiences, Meghan remains a powerful voice advocating for change and personal authenticity. For others, her public appearances feel carefully crafted, reinforcing the belief that every moment is part of a broader brand strategy. And that tension is exactly why every new interview.
Meghan Markle is now accused of breaking the agreement with the late Queen after podcast revelation, with the compliments of HRH, which is Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of...
Podcast episode or public recognition seems to ignite the same debate all over again. Whether people view her as misunderstood, strategic, or somewhere in between, one thing is clear. Few public figures today spark as much conversation as Meghan Markle. The controversy didn't stop with the podcast. Around the same time, Meghan's latest lifestyle venture drew attention for a different reason. Its product launch reportedly sold out within 30 minutes.
I made homemade strawberry jam. It's kind of like a doctor when you keep referring to them as doctor and like, call me Susan. Like I would never refer to myself as Her Royal Highness.
I think if somebody gives you a gift, you can say, you know, so-and-so, my friend so-and-so gave me a present.
Yeah.
I don't feel like she needed to.
At first glance, that sounded like a massive success. But critics quickly pointed out that limited inventory can sometimes be part of a marketing strategy designed to create urgency and excitement. It's a common tactic in the business world. Release a small amount of stock, generate demand, and allow the rapid sellout to build the perception of overwhelming popularity. Supporters saw the sellout as proof that Meghan still commands strong consumer interest. Skeptics, however, wondered whether the quick success reflected genuine demand or simply careful marketing. During the podcast conversation, Meghan also shared personal moments from her life as a mother. One detail that stood out was her mention of writing nightly emails to her 2 children, messages they could read later in life. For many listeners, the idea felt touching and heartfelt. It offered a glimpse into how she tries to capture memories and reflections for Archie and Lilibet as they grow up. But not everyone responded the same way. Some critics argued that the story sounded almost too polished, as if it had been lifted from a parenting guide. That difference in interpretation once again highlighted the deep divide in how audiences view Meghan's public storytelling. Despite the mixed reactions, the podcast episode generated significant attention online. Clips spread quickly across social platforms, and within hours the discussion had expanded far beyond the original interview. Host Jamie Kern-Lima described the conversation as raw and unfiltered. However, some listeners remained unconvinced. In particular, repeated mentions that Meghan had not seen the questions in advance drew attention.
She's stuck because she was an actress who became a real princess, who wants to be an actress again, but has to continue to pretend to be a real princess.
While the intention may have been to emphasize spontaneity, some viewers felt that highlighting the point so often had the opposite effect. Instead of reassuring audiences, it raised new questions. Why emphasize it so strongly? To certain critics, the repetition sounded less like proof of authenticity and more like an attempt to reinforce a specific narrative. Media commentators also weighed in. Alexander Larman of the Daily Mail described Meghan's emotional moments as strategic rather than spontaneous, arguing that they appear designed to keep her in the public spotlight. On social media, reactions ranged from supportive to sharply sarcastic. Some users joked that even her tears seemed carefully managed, suggesting that the delivery felt overly produced. Others focused on the structure of the interview itself.
There are times we get together and I'm like, I just want to have DoorDash come in. And you're like, let's make some. And I'm like,
no, I don't want to cook again, Meghan. My God, take a break.
Critics noted that many of the stories returned to Meghan's personal experiences, her challenges, her projects, and her perspective on recent events. To those listeners, the conversation felt closer to brand promotion than deep self-reflection. Royal commentators cited by The Express also argued that public perception surrounding Meghan has become extremely difficult to change. Whether her intentions are genuine or strategic, they suggested that opinions about her have largely hardened over time. Her appearance at the Time 100 Summit sparked another round of commentary as well. Online discussions compared different public figures and debated what authenticity looks like in celebrity culture. Some critics even contrasted Meghan with other high-profile personalities, questioning whether modern fame encourages performative behavior. Even though Meghan did not appear on the 2025 Time 100 list, the attention surrounding her presence at the event was enough to trigger renewed debate. Supporters argue that the constant scrutiny reflects how influential she remains. Critics counter that the attention often exceeds the impact of her work. Either way, the reaction shows one consistent pattern. Whenever Meghan appears in the public spotlight, the conversation around her quickly becomes intense, divided, and impossible to ignore. Reactions online quickly grew sharper. On X, some users mocked the attention surrounding Meghan's influence. Critics questioned what qualifies someone for global recognition, with one commenter sarcastically writing that selling jam, honey, and cupcake sprinkles doesn't exactly define world influence. Others compared her visibility with figures they believe have had broader cultural or journalistic impact. Gayle King's name was frequently mentioned in these comparisons, with some users arguing that her work in media represents a clearer example of influence. The tone of these comments was blunt, reflecting a broader debate about what influence actually means in today's celebrity culture. Several media outlets also weighed in. Commentators on GB News described Meghan as someone who continues to benefit from her royal connections while attempting to build an independent public brand. Critics in those discussions argued that the title of influence should be tied more directly to measurable impact. For supporters, however, the argument looks very different. They say Meghan's influence comes from her global visibility, her advocacy work, and her ability to spark conversations about topics ranging from mental health to media treatment of public figures. But the debate over influence had barely settled when another moment pushed the Sussexes back into the spotlight. Prince Harry's interview with the BBC quickly became the next headline. In the interview, Harry spoke openly about the long-running dispute surrounding his security arrangements in the United Kingdom, particularly after losing a court appeal related to the issue. During the conversation, he also expressed frustration with the royal institution and his ongoing relationship with the family. The interview immediately triggered strong reactions. Some commentators expressed sympathy for Harry's concerns about safety, especially given his public profile and past experiences. Others felt the interview reignited family tensions at a time when many believed those tensions should remain private. Columnist Sarah Vine criticized Harry's tone, describing the interview as self-pitying and suggesting it risked turning deeply personal family matters into public debate. Reports from palace-connected sources, cited in several outlets, claimed that the interview reinforced concerns inside royal circles about private conversations potentially becoming public discussions. One report in the Mirror suggested that King Charles had grown increasingly cautious in private interactions, worried that personal remarks might later appear in interviews or documentaries. Online reactions were immediate and intense. Supporters defended Harry's right to speak about issues affecting his family's safety. Critics accused him of continuing a public dispute that has already dominated headlines for years. Across social platforms, users debated whether the interview was necessary or whether it simply reopened old wounds. And once again, the Sussexes found themselves at the center of a familiar cycle. Every public appearance, every interview, and every statement becomes a new chapter in an ongoing global conversation. For some audiences, Meghan and Harry represent voices challenging traditional institutions and outdated expectations. For others, they symbolize celebrity culture colliding with royal tradition in ways that often create more controversy than clarity. What remains undeniable is that public perception of Meghan Markle continues to shift between admiration, skepticism, and criticism. Her projects, interviews, and public appearances rarely pass quietly. Instead, they ignite discussions about authenticity, influence, and the complicated intersection of celebrity branding and royal history. Whether Meghan is misunderstood or deliberately navigating a high-stakes public image strategy is a question that audiences continue to debate. And as long as those debates continue, the world will keep watching, analyzing every statement, every interview, and every moment that pulls the Sussex story back into the spotlight. After the BBC interview aired, the conversation quickly shifted from what was said to why it was said. For many viewers, the biggest question wasn't just about the content of Prince Harry's comments, it was about intent. Were the Sussexes finally being fully transparent about their experiences, or was the interview another carefully timed effort to shape public perception? That uncertainty kept the debate alive long after the interview ended. Then, just as the discussion seemed to reach its peak, older reports about Meghan's working relationships resurfaced in the media. Stories involving former staff members began circulating again, bringing renewed attention to long-standing rumors about her management style. Some outlets repeated claims that past employees had described a fast-moving work environment where priorities changed quickly and expectations sometimes shifted. According to these reports, communication could be intense and demanding, leading to mixed experiences among staff. It's important to note that many of these claims remain unconfirmed, and Meghan's representatives have previously rejected accusations of negative workplace behavior. Still, the resurfacing of those stories added another layer to the ongoing public debate about her leadership style behind the scenes. At the same time, observers began questioning the direction of Meghan's business ventures. In recent years, she has launched several projects, from media partnerships to lifestyle products and new branding initiatives. For supporters, this reflects ambition and creativity, an effort to build an independent identity beyond royal life. But critics see it differently. Some analysts argue that the pace of new launches and rebranding efforts has been unusually fast, raising questions about whether there is a long-term strategy guiding them. One commentator described it as a pattern of experimentation, suggesting that multiple ideas appear to be tested in quick succession to see what resonates most with audiences. This conversation naturally expanded into a broader discussion about media strategy. Since stepping back from royal duties, Harry and Meghan have used interviews, documentaries, podcasts, and public appearances to tell their story. Supporters believe this approach allows them to maintain control of their narrative and challenge what they see as unfair media coverage. Others argue the opposite. Some media analysts suggest that frequent public responses may unintentionally keep controversies alive, preventing certain debates from fading over time. In this view, each new interview or statement revives old arguments and invites fresh scrutiny. As a result, public opinion surrounding Meghan remains sharply divided. Supporters see a public figure navigating relentless criticism while trying to build an independent career. Critics see someone heavily focused on image management and personal branding. The truth, as often happens in highly public lives, may lie somewhere between those two perspectives. But in today's media environment, perception often moves faster than reality. Whenever a new project, interview, or announcement appears, anticipation quickly mixes with skepticism. Some audiences hope it will reshape the narrative around Meghan, while others expect the same familiar cycle: excitement, criticism, and intense analysis. And as that cycle continues, the spotlight inevitably returns to her. Commentators across television panels, news columns, and social media threads continue offering strong opinions, some supportive, others sharply critical, ensuring that Meghan Markle remains one of the most talked about figures in modern celebrity and royal culture. Media personalities soon joined the conversation with strong opinions of their own. One of the most widely shared reactions came from commentator Megyn Kelly, who used extremely harsh language to describe Meghan, calling her a malignant narcissist. The remark quickly spread across social media and talk shows, sparking intense reactions from both critics and supporters. For some, the comment reflected frustrations that had been building among Meghan's critics for years. For others, it crossed a line into personal attack and illustrated the level of hostility that often surrounds discussions about her. Journalists also weighed in. Celia Walden of The Telegraph argued that Meghan's podcast appearance felt less like a traditional interview and more like a personal therapy session. In her view, the conversation focused heavily on Meghan's own experiences rather than exploring broader topics, making the episode feel more promotional than reflective. Meanwhile, reports in Page 6 added another layer to the debate. The outlet claimed that certain wellness brands, including companies often associated with lifestyle influencer Gwyneth Paltrow's brand Goop, had allegedly chosen not to collaborate with Meghan because they viewed her as a polarizing figure. Those claims were not confirmed by the companies involved, but they immediately triggered discussion online. Some users argued that businesses might be cautious about partnerships with highly controversial public figures. Others said the reports were exaggerated and simply reflected ongoing attempts to frame Meghan negatively in the media. At the center of the controversy was a familiar question. When Meghan shares emotional or personal stories publicly, how should audiences interpret those moments? Supporters view her openness as genuine vulnerability. Critics sometimes see the same moments as carefully calculated attempts to influence public opinion. That difference in interpretation has become a defining feature of how Meghan's public appearances are received. Attention also turned toward podcast host Jamie Kern-Lima. Some viewers praised her supportive style, saying it allowed Meghan to speak freely without feeling attacked or defensive. But others felt the tone of the interview leaned too heavily toward admiration. A few online commentators described the energy of the conversation as overly enthusiastic. YouTube personality. The Royal Rogue, for example, argued that the host's tone sounded more like encouragement than journalism. Writer Rose Lanigan made a similar observation, suggesting that the discussion sometimes resembled promotional content rather than a probing interview. Across social media platforms, reactions ranged from appreciation to criticism. Some users joked that the conversation felt like a Meghan appreciation session, while others defended the format, pointing out that many modern podcasts intentionally focus on supportive, personal storytelling rather than confrontational questioning. What made the discussion particularly interesting was the background of the host herself. Jamie Kern-Lima is a highly successful entrepreneur who built IT Cosmetics and later sold the company to L'Oreal in a deal reportedly worth over $1 billion. Because of her reputation as a business leader, some listeners expected the interview to include more detailed discussion about strategy, leadership, or entrepreneurship. Instead, the conversation stayed focused largely on Meghan's personal experiences and reflections. That choice left some viewers wondering whether the episode had been carefully structured to emphasize storytelling and brand image rather than deeper analysis. But stepping back, the broader debate isn't really about one podcast episode or one interview. It reflects a larger question that follows almost every public appearance by Harry and Meghan. Are they simply sharing their personal truth, or are they shaping a narrative designed to influence how the public sees them? From Time magazine recognition to resurfacing workplace rumors and ongoing media criticism, the scrutiny surrounding the couple continues to grow. Critics accuse them of focusing too heavily on personal struggles to maintain attention. Supporters argue they are reclaiming control over their story after years of intense media pressure. And for many observers watching the debate unfold online, the reality is that the truth may never be fully clear. As the conversation continues, media analysts are beginning to ask a larger question about the long-term strategy behind Meghan and Harry's public appearances. Can the couple continue relying on interviews, podcasts, and personal storytelling without eventually facing audience fatigue? Some communications experts believe there is a risk. They argue that when public figures appear too frequently in emotional or revealing interviews, audiences may gradually become less responsive. What once felt powerful or heartfelt can begin to feel repetitive, and sympathy can slowly give way to skepticism. In that view, the challenge isn't necessarily the message itself, it's the volume and timing of how often that message appears. Other analysts see the situation very differently. They point out that in the modern media environment, visibility itself is a form of power. Controversy keeps a public figure in headlines, and headlines maintain relevance. From that perspective, the constant attention surrounding the Sussexes, positive or negative, continues to reinforce their influence in global conversations about celebrity, media, and royalty. Still, expectations around their next projects are growing. After the mixed reception to some previous ventures, industry observers say future releases will be judged less on headlines and more on results. One entertainment executive recently suggested that the couple's next major project will need to demonstrate clear impact rather than simply generate media buzz. In other words, audiences may now be looking for substance over spectacle. Supporters of Meghan and Harry continue to defend them strongly. Many argue that Meghan in particular faces a level of scrutiny rarely applied to male public figures. From their perspective, she is navigating an extremely difficult transition, trying to build an identity outside the royal institution while under constant global attention. They also argue that public narratives about her have often been shaped by criticism from the beginning, making it difficult for any project or interview to be evaluated without bias. Critics, however, interpret the pattern differently. Some say the recurring combination of emotional storytelling followed by new business ventures creates the impression of strategic timing. When personal moments appear close to product launches or media announcements, skeptics argue that audiences may start to question whether vulnerability is being used as part of a branding strategy. Whether fair or not, perception has become one of the most powerful forces shaping the couple's public image. Right now, Meghan and Harry appear to be standing at a crossroads. Every interview, appearance, and announcement carries the potential either to rebuild trust with audiences or to deepen existing doubts among critics. And the scrutiny is constant. Social media dissects every moment, from Meghan's emotional interviews to Harry's public comments about his family. Supporters interpret those moments as honesty. Critics search for hidden strategy. In many ways, the Sussex story has become a reflection of a much larger cultural conversation. It's about how celebrity, media influence, and personal storytelling interact in a world where every public figure operates under a digital microscope. Authenticity and performance are constantly being weighed against each other, and audiences are left to decide what they believe. For now, one thing remains clear. Meghan and Harry continue to occupy a uniquely visible space where royalty, celebrity culture, and modern media collide. Every decision they make, every podcast, interview, or project becomes part of a larger narrative watched by millions around the world. Supporters remain passionate, critics remain vocal, and the public fascination shows no sign of disappearing anytime soon. So what do you think? Do Meghan and Harry simply face an extraordinary level of scrutiny, or do their public strategies contribute to the controversy surrounding them? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you've been following the story closely, subscribe for more discussions and updates on the evolving world of royal headlines.